chosen one. The first thing I tell you today is going to land like an accusation, and I need you to receive it as a rescue instead. That voice in your head, the one that has been taking you apart piece by piece, the one that shows up before your feet hit the floor in the morning, it is not you. It never was you. You have been in a fist fight with a stranger and calling it self-improvement. Stay with me, because I'm not talking about positive thinking, and I'm not going to tell you to smile at your reflection. I'm telling you something about ownership, about what is yours and what has been planted in you by something that has no right to be there. Let me start with the test. It's a simple one, and it has undone more people than any sermon I've ever preached. Take the last cruel thing that voice said to you. Not a vague feeling, the actual sentence. Maybe it was you always ruin it. Maybe it was they'd be relieved if you were gone. Maybe it was you're too far behind now. There's no catching up. Whatever it was, hold it in front of you. Now imagine saying that exact sentence, word for word, tone for tone, to your daughter, to your best friend at the kitchen table, to the person you love most in this world, in their lowest hour. You wouldn't. Not in 1,000 years. Something in you would physically refuse. So answer me honestly. If cruelty like that is not in your nature, if you could not aim it at another human being, even if you tried, then where did it come from when it was aimed at you? That's the question I want to sit in for the next few minutes. Because the answer changes everything about how you live. Here's what most people never consider. You have been treating your mind like a house you own. Doors locked, windows shut. Everything inside belongs to you. And so when something ugly speaks in there, you assume it's a piece of furniture you bought yourself. You assume the voice has your name on it. But your mind isn't a sealed house. It's a house on a busy street, with a door that opens both ways. Things come in, things speak. And the enemy of your soul has never once introduced himself before he started talking. That's his whole method. He doesn't announce. He doesn't say, "Hello, I'm here to destroy your confidence in God." He speaks in the first person. He borrows your voice, your accent, your memories. He says "I" so you'll never think to ask who's talking. Go back to the very beginning and you'll see it. The first attack in the history of the world was not a weapon. It was not a flood, or a fire, or an army. It was a sentence, a question, spoken out loud in a garden where everything was already perfect. Did God really say? 4 words. That's the whole strategy, still running today, unchanged. Because it still works. He didn't tell Eve that God was a liar. He just introduced doubt as a thought, and let her carry it around until it felt like her own idea. By the time she reached for the fruit, she wasn't obeying a serpent. She was obeying a thought she believed was hers. That's what I need you to understand about the war you're in. He's not trying to break your body. He's trying to get you to adopt his sentences and raise them like your own children. And listen, this is the part that stings. He specializes in people like you. Not the indifferent. Not the ones asleep at the wheel with no call on their life. He goes after the ones carrying something. He goes after assignment. If you have ever wondered why the attacks on your mind seem heavier than what the people around you deal with, why they can coast through a Tuesday, and you're fighting for your sanity, by lunchtime, it's not because you're weaker. It's because you're carrying more. Let me show you a man who found that out the hard way. Elijah stands on Mount Carmel and calls fire down out of heaven. Not a metaphor, actual fire, in front of an entire nation against 450 prophets of Baal who had been screaming at the sky all day with nothing to show for it. He soaks the altar in water 3 times, just to make the miracle harder. And God answers. The fire falls, The people fall on their faces. It is the single greatest public display of God's power in that man's life. And then he reigns. Elijah outruns a chariot. The man is untouchable. Now turn one page. One page later, he's sitting under a broom tree in the wilderness, alone, and he says to God, "It is enough. Take my life. I am no better than my fathers." Same man, same week, from fire on the mountain to I want to die in the space of a few days. Think about that for a second. Because if you've ever wondered how you can be worshiping on Sunday with tears in your eyes and want to disappear by Wednesday afternoon, Elijah just answered you. It's not instability. It's not hypocrisy. It's the pattern. The attack came after the anointing. It always does. When you rise, something notices. And it doesn't come at you with a sword, it comes at you with a sentence. You're no better than the people who came before you. You accomplished nothing. Nothing changed. You're the last one left, and you're not enough. Look at what God did not do. He did not rebuke Elijah. He did not lecture him about faith. He sent an angel to feed him and let him sleep. Twice. And then he spoke, not in the wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in a whisper. That's your first clue about how to tell the voices apart. And I want you to write it down somewhere. The enemy shouts. God whispers. The voice that screams at you. That piles on. That gives you a list of everything you've ever failed at in chronological order at 2 in the morning. That's not conviction. Conviction is specific, and it comes with a door out. It says this thing, right here, needs to change. And here's my hand. Condemnation is global, and it locks you in. It doesn't say you did something bad. It says you are something bad. It never names a next step because it doesn't want you to take one. If the voice in your head has no exit door in it, it did not come from your father. Let me bring this off the mountain and into your actual life, because I know where you live. You're sitting in your car in the driveway. Engine off. The house is right there, 12 feet away. Lights on in the kitchen. People inside who love you, and you can't make yourself open the door yet. So you sit. And in that quiet, the voice starts working. They'd be better off. You're just the guy who pays the bills. You're pretending. Everybody's going to figure it out eventually. Or it's 2 in the morning, and you're staring at the ceiling doing the thing you always do, going through the greatest hits. That sentence you said in 2011, the way you handled your mother's last week, the job you walked away from. The voice runs the tape and then says, calm as anything, this is who you are. Or you're standing in the cereal aisle on a Saturday, cart half full, and out of nowhere something says your prayers aren't going anywhere. No warning, no reason. Right there between the Cheerios and the oatmeal. Now think about that last one honestly. Did you sit down and decide to think that? Did you weigh the evidence and arrive at a conclusion about the effectiveness of your prayer life while shopping for breakfast? No, it arrived. It came in from somewhere, and it spoke in your voice, and you accepted delivery without checking the return address. That's what a thought that isn't yours feels like. It arrives. It doesn't get built. And sometimes it doesn't even come in your own voice. Sometimes if you slow down enough to listen, you'll realize it sounds like somebody. A father who never once said he was proud. A coach who told a 9-year-old boy he'd never amount to much, and then went home and forgot he'd said it. A teacher, an ex, a woman at a church who made one comment about your family in a parking lot 20 years ago. They said it once. You've been repeating it every day since. That's how the enemy furnishes a house. He doesn't build new lies from scratch that's too much work and too easy to spot. He walks through your history, picks up whatever cruelty somebody left lying around, and plays it back on a loop until you can't tell the recording from your own reasoning. So the voice in your head might not even be his original material. It might be a dead man's opinion, kept alive by rent-free residents, in a mind that never thought to ask whether it should still be there. Think about that. You may be losing sleep over a sentence spoken by somebody who has forgotten they said it. And here's the difference nobody explains. Your own thoughts have roots. You can trace them. You thought about the bills because you saw the mail. You thought about your brother because a song came on. But the ones that come to kill, they show up without a road behind them. No context. No trigger. Just a knife in the dark that talks. So what do you do with a thought that isn't yours? You do what Jesus did in the wilderness. And I want you to look at this closely, because most people read that story wrong. 40 days without food. He's depleted. He's alone. And the enemy comes and speaks. And notice how he speaks. He doesn't say you are not the Son of God. He says, if you are the Son of God, turn these stones into bread. He questions identity first. Always identity first. Because if he can get you to doubt who you are, he doesn't have to fight you on anything else. A son who forgets he's a son will beg for what already belongs to him. And how did Jesus answer? He did not argue. He did not analyze the thought or explore where it came from, or sit with it to understand it. He opened his mouth and spoke the word out loud 3 times. And the 3rd time, he gave a direct order. Away from me. Out loud. That's the detail people skip. There is something that happens when a word leaves your mouth that does not happen when it stays in your head. Your spirit hears it. The room hears it. And what has been speaking to you hears that it has been identified. You cannot silence a voice by thinking harder. You've tried. You've been trying for years. Fighting a thought with another thought is 2 men wrestling in the same house. Nothing leaves. It just gets louder. So you speak. And you don't speak your feelings. Because your feelings are the thing under attack. You speak what is written. Now, let's talk about how you actually kill these things. Because the title of this message is not gentle. And I meant it that way. You don't manage them. You don't befriend them. You don't journal about them for 6 months hoping they'll get tired. You put them down. And the first move is the hardest one, because it feels like a technicality, and it is actually a war crime against the enemy. You separate yourself from the thought. Watch Jesus do it with Peter. Peter has just said the most beautiful thing anybody says in the whole gospel: you are the Christ, the Son of the living God. Jesus blesses him for it, tells him flesh and blood didn't reveal that, calls him a rock. Minutes later, Jesus starts explaining that he has to go to Jerusalem and suffer and die. And Peter, out of love, out of loyalty, pulls him aside and says, "Never. Lord, this will never happen to you." And Jesus turns and says, "Get behind me, Satan." Now think about what just happened. He did not say, "Peter, you're evil." He did not throw the man out. He looked past the mouth to the source and addressed the thing that was actually talking. That's the move. That's the whole thing. When that voice tells you that you're a failure, you don't say, "I'm being hard on myself today." You say, "That is not mine, and it is not staying." You give it a name, and you give it a direction. Behind me. Out. Not welcome here. Because here is the trap you've been living in as long as you believe the thought is you. You can't fight it. You can only be ashamed of it. And shame doesn't evict anything. Shame is the rent it collects. The second move is out loud, and I already told you why. Say it with your mouth. in the car, in the shower, in the garage where nobody hears you. I am not what that voice says I am. The third move is the one people skip, and skipping it is why they end up worse in 6 weeks. An empty room does not stay empty. Jesus said it plainly: the unclean spirit goes out, wanders through dry places, finds no rest, and comes back to the house it left. And when it finds that house swept clean and empty, it brings 7 others worse than itself. And the last state of that man is worse than the first, swept and empty. That's the danger. You can spend a month refusing the lie and never once install the truth, and all you've done is redecorate a vacancy. So you don't just kill the sentence, you replace it, word for word. It says you're alone. You answer, "He will never leave me, nor forsake me." It says, "You're too far gone." You answer, "There is now no condemnation." It says nothing you do matters. You answer, "He who began a good work in me will complete it." Not because it feels true. It won't feel true at first. Feelings are the last thing to move. They're the caboose, not the engine. You speak the truth, while it still feels like a lie, and you keep speaking it, and one morning you notice the lie doesn't have the same grip on your throat. Now I want to speak directly to whoever has been sitting still since I started, feeling something turn over inside them. If your chest has gotten tight, if some part of you has been quietly saying, "He's describing my exact life," that's not coincidence, and it isn't me. That's the Spirit turning the light on in a room you've kept dark on purpose. And that recognition is fragile. You'll feel it now, and by tomorrow evening the noise will have covered it back over, unless you do something with it while it's still burning. Let me tell you who I am, briefly, so you know whose voice this is. My name is George. I'm no scholar, and I've never pretended to be. I'm a man who spent a long stretch of his life believing every accusation that walked through his own mind, thinking that agreeing with the cruelest voice in the room was the same thing as being humble. It nearly took me out. What brought me back wasn't a technique. It was finding out who was actually talking, and finding out what God had already put in me before any of that noise ever started. That's why this next part exists. The calling is wide. The instructions reach only a few. If there is a burning in your spirit right now, do not minimize it. That is the sign. The secret protocol delivers the 7 keys God reserved for those who are ready to unlock what was sealed inside them before birth. The full audiobook is included to absorb in depth, in your own time, in the presence of God. And the Awakening Map, the bonus guide, that reveals the 5 stages of spiritual awakening and positions you with precision at the exact point of your journey today. Link pinned in the first comment. For a limited time, only because not every door stays open forever. I'm not asking you to buy something. I'm telling you that a person who has been fed lies about himself for 20 years needs more than a video. He needs the record. He needs to see in writing what heaven said about him before anybody else got a vote. Now let me show you a man who fought this fight in the worst hour of his life. David comes back to Ziklag with his 600 men and finds the city burned to the ground. Every wife, every son, every daughter taken. They lift up their voices and weep until they have no strength left to weep. And then his own men, the ones who followed him through caves and wilderness, start talking about stoning him. He has lost his family, his home, and his army in a single afternoon. And the scripture says one of the most extraordinary things in the entire Old Testament about what he did next. David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. There was nobody to do it for him. No prophet, no worship team, no friend to sit on the floor with him. The people who should have been his comfort were picking up rocks. So he did it himself. He turned his own mouth around, and preached to his own soul, until his soul got up. That's what the Psalms are. Mostly, a man arguing with his own despair in public. Why are you cast down, O my soul? Why are you disquieted within me? Hope in God. He's not reporting his feelings. He's giving them orders. And notice, he didn't wait until he felt better to do it. He did it standing in the ashes of everything, with smoke still coming off the walls, and his own men deciding whether to kill him. He didn't wait for conditions to improve. He opened his mouth in the middle of the worst day of his life, and started saying true things about God when every visible fact was screaming the opposite. That's the order of operations, and most of us have it backwards. We wait to feel strong enough to speak. He spoke until he was strong enough to stand. You have that same authority over the room between your ears. You've just never used it. You've been a guest in your own house, waiting for permission to speak, while a squatter runs the place and charges you rent. Now, some of you are hearing this and a smaller voice is saying, but some of it's true. I know. Let's deal with that honestly, because I'm not going to insult you by pretending you've never done real damage. You have failed people. So have I. Some of what that voice says has a piece of a fact wrapped around it, and that's exactly why it works. A lie with no truth in it gets rejected immediately. The dangerous ones are the ones with a splinter of something real driven through the middle, but watch what he does with the fact. God can bring up the same failure, and it comes out completely different. When God brings it up, there's a road out. There's a name. There's a specific thing. There's mercy standing at the end of it. When the enemy brings it up, there's no road, there's only a verdict, delivered again and again, about a case that was already closed at the cross. He is not correcting you. He is prosecuting a man who has already been pardoned, hoping you never read the paperwork. So when the thought comes and it has a real memory in it, you don't deny the memory. You deny the verdict. Yes, I did that. And it was covered. And I'm not going back to court over it. There's one more thing I have to tell you, and it might be the piece that sets somebody free tonight. The voice does not only accuse you of your past, it accuses you of your future. It tells you what you'll never be. Gideon was hiding in a wine press, threshing wheat where nobody could see him, because the Midianites were taking everything his people grew. He was afraid, objectively, provably afraid, and the angel of the Lord shows up and says, "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor." Mighty man of valor, to a man in a hole. And Gideon does what you do. He argues, "My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my father's house." He gives God his Ursum of smallness, because that's what he'd been told his whole life, and he had come to believe the telling. God doesn't debate him. God just repeats the assignment. Go in this might of yours. Here's the thing about how heaven talks. God calls you what you are not yet, because he's speaking to what he put in you, not to what you've managed so far. The enemy calls you what you're afraid you are, because he's speaking to your history. One voice speaks to your seed. The other speaks to your soil. And chosen one, I have to say this plainly because this is the whole message. You have been agreeing with the wrong one for years. Not out of rebellion, out of habit. Because the accusing voice got in early, before you had any way to check its credentials, and it's been drawing a paycheck out of your peace ever since. Today it gets fired. Not managed, not counseled, not understood, evicted, with its things on the curb. And I want to be honest with you about what happens next, because I don't want you disappointed by Thursday. This is not a one-time deliverance where you never hear from it again. It came back to Jesus at a more opportune time, and it will come back to you. That's not failure. That's just the nature of a war that hasn't ended yet. What changes is not the frequency. What changes is the recognition. Right now, the thought arrives, and you receive it like mail with your name on it. After tonight, it arrives, and something in you sits up and says, I know that voice. That's not mine. And the second you can name it, it loses the only weapon it ever had, which was the disguise. You're not going to win by never hearing it. You're going to win by never believing it again. So here's what I want you to do before you close this. And I want you to be exact with me. Because vague never healed anybody. In the comments, write the one sentence that voice repeats to you the most. The actual words. Not I struggle with negative thinking the sentence. The one it's been using since you were young enough that you don't remember learning it. And then, underneath it, write one thing you know God has said about you. It doesn't have to be poetic. It doesn't even have to feel true yet. It just has to be true. I read those, and I'll tell you what happens in that comment section. Somebody's going to scroll down and find their own sentence written by a stranger 3 states away. And for the first time in their life, they're going to understand that it was never theirs either. That's how these things die. Out loud. In the open, where the light gets in. This channel is created without ads and without platform income. If these messages have touched your heart, strengthened your faith, or helped you during a difficult moment, and you'd like to support this work, you can use the CR code on your screen or the contribution link in the pinned comment. Thank you for walking this path with us. And that voice you've been carrying, the one that got in before you knew how to check the door, the one that's been speaking in your accent this whole time, so you'd never think to question it, it is standing behind you right now, waiting to see whether you'll turn around and use your mouth. Go on. Say it out loud. It's not yours. It never was. Put it out.